morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to today's SPS Commerce on Conversation. Today we'll discuss a topic that has been top of mind probably for just about everyone out there. Planning during times of uncertainty, because there's been so much. For over a year, the global pandemic has caused disruption and uncertainty with lockdowns, store closings, all kinds of different events. That's just been very tough on the economy and also businesses. Today, we'll explore how leading brands are navigating these challenges with help from our experts. We brought some panelists come from Under Armour Europe and Fruit of the Loom Europe. Plus, we'll show you a live demo of a dashboard within our analytics solution that can help you analyze your business, give you a different viewpoint, a different way of looking at it. My name is Will Flowers. I am a senior sales trainer here at SPS, and I'll be your host today. I'm very excited to be with you, and I'll make sure we answer your questions as best as we can. One promise I have for you is we will wrap up on time. I want to give you an idea and just a glimpse of how we're going to go through today. If you have a question, what I will ask that you do is drop it in the Zoom Q&A. We'll answer it during our Q&A section of our presentation today. We'll do that with our panelists, and you'll get your questions answered. And stay alert. I want you to stay alert because during the event, as we'll be doing a prize drawing, and you may be one of our lucky winners. I want to take this time to bring up our panelists, those that are going to be speaking to you and presenting before you today. Today we have Emily Webster. She is our senior business planner at Under Armour Europe. She's responsible for their pure player digital wholesale accounts. Emily, it's so great to have you today.
Thanks for having me, and hi to everyone.
Also, our panelists today, one of our panelists is going to be Henry Neufund. Henry is a director of forecasting and sales analyst at Fruit of the Loom Europe. Thanks, Henry. Appreciate you joining us as well.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Also, from the SPS side, we have Allison. Allison is our senior retail intelligence manager at SPS and trusted advisor for many of our analytics customers. Welcome, Allison. Great to see you.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Last but not least, we have Courtney D'Onofrio. She's an analytics expert for SPS who's worked with retailers and suppliers for more than 10 years across North America and Europe. Courtney, always, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too, Will. Thanks for having me again.
Now, Courtney's going to lead us in our panel discussion today. Courtney, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Will. Well, we are so excited to have Emily Webster from Under Armour Europe with us today. Emily, I'll start with an easy one for you. Can you start by telling us a little bit about your role at Under Armour?
Sure, thanks for having me too, and it's great to be part of the session. So my current role is a senior business planner at Under Armour, where I work in our digital wholesale team, looking after our pure player retailers. So there are online only wholesale retailers with the focus of driving strategic growth. In our team, or in my team, we use sellout data that we get from SPS, and we are kind of the entry point into sharing that data and those results and insights with the rest of the company. So I'm working with internal stakeholders and also external stakeholders to basically make sure we're delivering against our strategy.
Thank you, Emily. So let's take a big picture to start the conversation today. We've obviously seen a big shift from brick and mortar to online sales and a lot of change and uncertainty in the last year. So can you tell us a little bit about how this has affected your business and some of the trends that you've noticed?
Sure. Yeah, when we had the initial impact from COVID-19 last March, I mean, I think that probably hit our business as hard as it hit at most. We saw declining performance across both of our channels, and that being both our digital business and also our brick and mortar business through our retail stores. And definitely we saw a period where consumer spending shifted to essential items, as we called them. So non-essential items, including sportswear, just wasn't really a priority, and the consumer was focusing more on the needs than the wants. But that period was quite short-lived, and actually, you know, fortunately for me, particularly in my role, we saw once that consumer spending, those consumer spending trends changed, we actually saw a big shift to digital, and we had booming sales in key areas. I mean, things like yoga, running, when trends in home workouts and those kind of sports that you could do independently picked up. We definitely noticed that in the results. I have to say, a year later, it's not over. We're still discussing the lockdowns and the store closures each week. But yeah, it's definitely clear that the digital part is here to stay. So.
Well, you got it right that the retail environment is changing week by week. These days, it feels like it's even changing day by day. I know I myself have a hard time keeping up with which countries are in and out of lockdown. Here in Europe, this is still very much a reality for us. So when it comes to planning and forecasting in these times, can you tell us what kinds of data you're using and also how you're getting that data?
Sure. So yeah, I'm using the stock and sales data that I get obviously from the SPS feeds that we have, and we look at that stock and sales data in different time periods. So we look at it from a week to date point of view, looking at last week's sales. We also look season to date, and we look year to date, and we're always comparing the sales in that relevant period versus the relevant period last year as well. That obviously gives us an indication of growth or how the business is declining. We also look at the inventory KPIs a lot, things like our sell-through and our weeks of cover and our stock turn, and that really helps us kind of identify opportunities in season and also to mitigate risk, because we know what's happening at our retailers. I get the data weekly. I have SPS report subscriptions, and those come into me, and then we use dashboards as well to kind of visualize some of that data. Another thing that we're doing at Under Armour is we're really driving the end-to-end planning process. So as part of that, we are linking business planning, which is my role, to sales planning, who really own the forecast. And that means, that we're always comparing our sellout performance to our sell-in performance. And that kind of gives us an indication of how the sellout is performing versus what was bought. A couple of KPIs that we really use for that to help that process are our share of business and how that's changing, and also the rate of sale, particularly in recent times when comparing to last year is challenging. That rate of sale from a more recent time period really gives us an indication of how performance is tracking and where it might go.
And so as you're looking at this sellout data, which, as you mentioned, is a really critical component of your forecasting and planning, what percentage of your retail customers do you get this sellout data from? And when you're not getting that data, how do you go about talking to your retailers and starting a conversation to maybe get data flowing?
Yeah, I think it definitely varies. I think overall we have quite a good coverage within Under Armour. I mean, in my part of the business, we actually get the coverage from about 95% of the retailers. And I think a benefit of digital is that, they're often looking at similar sellout metrics, and they have, feeds or systems that are already kind of set up to do that. So that's definitely more straightforward. In some other areas, it's a bit more challenging when, say, there's maybe hundreds of smaller retailers and those feeds or those systems aren't as sophisticated. So in some areas of the business, we have 60 to 70% coverage. But I think overall, we've definitely made big improvements in looking back over the last 5 years, maybe. So one of the things, as you mentioned, how we convince retailers, I think that's really just trying to make them understand that this is a partnership, and we want to not just have that data internally for our own use, but we want to use it externally as well to drive conversations that we're having with them. And the more metrics that we get, then the more we can draw insights from the business. So hopefully when we try to kind of show the win-win situation, I think that really helps to drive the relationship. and yeah, gets retailers to share more with us.
I totally agree, Emily. I think it's, first of all, you are quite lucky having 95% coverage of your business. And I wish that it could be the same for everyone. I think data is power, and having that visibility does really help you to become a trusted advisor and a key partner to your retailers. So what I would also like to hear a little bit about is your partnership with SPS, and maybe talk a little bit about your experience working with our analytics solution, how we help Under Armour, the value you experience, that sort of thing. Could you share some insights?
Sure. Yeah. So I think, I mean, yeah, going back, say, I think about 5 years. I think that's been since, I think SPS has been a kind of Under Armour's chosen partner in that time. Basically, since the beginning of our kind of strategy and desire to be a data-driven company, and to make sure that we're really using those insights and translating that into kind of improvements for the future. So I think, yeah, going back 5 years, we used to get weekly reports from different retailers in all different formats, and it was almost impossible to give like one view on how we're performing as a region per se, because we are the EMEA region. So we always, whilst we look at account performance, we're also reporting on the total. So SPS has really been a tremendous help in that sense, building data feeds with loads of new retailers, standardizing our reports, meaning we can report on everything in one go. And also, as we've gone along, building metrics and KPIs that we've needed as the business has evolved, we've been able to do that. And most recently, we were able to integrate our SPS data into our own BI system, which has then unlocked even more opportunities, because we can then compare our kind of sellout and our sell-in data in the same place. So yeah, so far it's been great, and it's always a pleasure to work with you guys.
Thanks, Emily. The same for you. I think one of the things that you're doing quite well is just being very proactive with this data and finding those insights and finding those ways to mitigate risk. And in doing so, I think that really helps you to not only improve your own business at the brand, but also improve the relationship with your retailers. So we'll probably have some more questions for you as we move into the Q&A segment later. I know I can speak on behalf of the SPS Commerce team that we always enjoy working with you and the Under Armour team. So now that we have chatted a bit with Emily, we're going to move on to a demo. So Emily alluded to how 5 years ago, they had data coming in all shapes and sizes and all different formats. But now with SPS, they have all of their sellout and inventory data normalized. And I think that's really the key here. So next, to give you a peek into how this could look, I'd like to welcome my colleague, Allison Tribus, who is here to show us the power of point of sale data within the SPS Commerce solution. Hello, Allison.
Hello, Courtney. Thank you. So I just want to say hello to everyone and introduce myself. My name is Allison Tribus, and at SPS, I work on a team called Retail Intelligence. Myself and my team members, we have worked for many years in the industry, either for suppliers or retailers, typically in an inventory planning, sales operations type of role. Myself, I have done production planning. I've done .com management of inventory. So I have a lot of analytical experience. And I've been with SPS about 5 years now. So I'm an expert in the tool. So now I can intelligently help my customers build reports and dashboards to answer the business problems and questions that I know that they have. So forecasting is a big one, of course. Everybody has got forecasting on their mind. So the beauty about the tool in SPS is that we are a business intelligence tool that can help you look at the data through a lens that allows you to make those decisions on your forecasts. So you can use the reports and dashboards within SPS. You can build custom ones to get exactly the information that you need to make the decisions on how to adjust your forecasts. So in the demo today, I'm going to show you a dashboard that I built to help look at the past 3 years of history. It's come up a lot that comparing to 2020 isn't going to cut it. We need to also compare to 2019. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Alrighty. So this dashboard is an example of how you can run a weekly trend report and go back 3 years and then pull that weekly trend report into a dashboard and create these views to organize the information in such a way that allows you to analyze it. So in this dashboard, I've gone back to 2019. And the first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of plot the past 3 years on the same axis and see the trends over time. Now, just a note here that we are looking at a demo environment, so the information is, not real. So the trends will look quite neat and tidy. So what I did here first is in this chart right here on the left, I'm plotting the year-over-year sales. We're looking at it in euros. We're actually looking at it in pounds sterling. I decided last minute to filter to my British retailer. You can see here I've got filters on the side. So I'm gonna take a look at one retailer at the moment, but do know that you can look at this for your total business and you don't need to drill down to retailer. So in this example, the black line here is showing how your sales have actualized up until the current week. So we're in week 10 in this example. So you can see the black line of sales here. The purple line right here is my 2020 sales. And then the green line is the 2019. So now I can really see the variance between these three lines and how they follow each other week over week. We're fixed at 52 weeks here. So week 1 through week 52. So after I get a general understanding of the general trends, whether I'm up or down between the past, between this year versus last year and then the previous year, now I want to actually see the numbers. So I created a grid here on the right-hand side. Now my first process in this analysis is that I want to analyze the sales over each week. I want to see the sales broken out by week. And then after I get a general weekly breakout, I'm going to dig in a little bit deeper at the category and product level. So if I take a look at the grid here on the right, I've decided that I want to focus my attention on retail sales, unit sales, and sell-through percent. Now I brought in the sell-through percent because that is a very important metric to keep an eye on so that you can kind of gauge what the sales are in relation to the total inventory that your retailer has purchased. Because you want to know if you've got a glut of inventory or if you're moving through, or if the retailer is moving through the inventory quite well. So we've got week in the rows here. Then I've got my retail sales broken out between the past 3 years. So you can see the sales have actualized up until current week, week 20. I've then created a custom calculation here to compare 2021 to 2019 because I want to see the variance. I want to see if I'm up or down. And then further to that, I've got the same information broken out for unit sales and sell-through. Now I have the full 52 weeks in my report here, but I'm going to actually adjust this using my week filter that I created down to current week. So I'm going to go down to week 10 here by dragging and dropping that little circle. So by doing that, the beauty of that is now that this report is filtered down to year to date, so it's essentially the year to date information, I can now use my total line at the top and I can see my total variance is negative 22%. So I'm down this year 22% versus 2019 for the same weeks. And then I can see the breakout week over week to understand, where I was up or down. So this is a custom calculation that I created in the product, and you can create custom calculations in our tool very easily. So in addition to the huge library of metrics that we offer, we also offer the opportunity to create new metrics. And another really key KPI I think to look at is a 4-week average. To Emily's point, you might not want to just look at last week. You might want to look at current trends. And so current trends are something that you can look at with a 4-week average. So I'm going to right click on my retail sales, and we've got these shortcut metrics here to make it easy for you. And then there's one in particular that I like, the moving average. And you can indicate how many weeks you would like to average. I'm going to average 4 weeks because I think 4 is a good baseline. So now I've got my moving average on my retail sales. So now if I look at the current week, I can see that last week came in at 94 pounds versus 235 in 2020 and 242 in 2019. But if I look at my moving average, I can see that the 94 is kind of low because the 4-week average is almost at 131K. And that is because of this spike in sales in week 6 here, where I came in at 288. And another nice thing is that you can do that on sell-through percent. So I'm going to scroll over to sell-through percent, and I'm going to do the same calculation here. So now I've got my moving average for the past 4 weeks on sell-through percent. So I can see just the week sell-through percent, and I can see what the 4-week average sell-through percent is. So this step here is just really to understand some high level trends, some variances week over week. And using this information, I can then calibrate and adjust my future forecasts up or down based on the trends I'm seeing at the moment, especially if the forecasts or the plans were set using 2019 data. So after I see the week over week information, I'm going to pop over to the second tab here. I've created the same view, but instead of using week in the rows, I've swapped that out with a subcategory attribute. In this example, it's called silhouette. And then below that, I'm bringing in product level sales. So I'm using an attribute called style description. So in this example, I've also filtered down my week to week 10, so I can compare apples to apples, 2019 versus 2020 versus 2021, same weeks. And now I can see very quickly which subcategories are really uptrending or downtrending. So to Emily's point, there are areas of your business that are going to grow. Maybe, everyone's, at home exercising. So maybe there's certain categories that you want to keep an eye on and make sure that you increase the forecast on because they're uptrending. And so looking at it this way allows you to see if there are categories that are wildly up, so a very high variance, or a very negative variance, so they're very much down. And then you can make those adjustments to those specific areas of your forecast, knowing that information of what's trending and what's uptrending and what's downtrending. And then further to that, if I click through on, for example, this silhouette here called cushioning is down about 30%. If I click through on that, I've been able to feature, I call it a click to filter feature, but it allows you to drill down very easily. So now that I've clicked on cushioning, my style report has updated to show me those products within that subcategory. And now I can see what their sales are in relation to the past 2 years and the variance here. So now I can really drill in and see if there is any specific products that are uptrending or downtrending. And then I can maybe, if I can, you can make those adjustments at the style level to your forecasts. So that's just an example here of how you can use this business intelligence tool to have different lenses on the information and really drill into areas that you want to focus on. But the other thing I just want to kind of call out as some key metrics that you might want to look at when you're doing particularly brick and mortar forecasts. I'm going to pop over to this other tab here. I created another report. I'm calling this my sales forecast tool. But when you're doing a brick and mortar forecast, you definitely want to incorporate door counts. And so in SPS, we have door level information, and we have all the way down to the EAN level information. So in this report, I'm going down to the style, but you can certainly go down to style, color, size if you need to. And I've calculated a door count here, or actually we have a door count in our metric library for you to use. So now I can normalize the sales by dividing my unit sales by my door counts. In this example, I wanted to look, I'm planning for next fall, September through December. So I'm looking at September through December for a historical year. Now this is dummy data, so I'm looking at 2018, but you can do this for 2020, 2019, however much history you have in the product. and I want to see what my sales per door are for those months, and then the total and the average sales per door. Now I can use that normalized information to really forecast out in the future, hopefully knowing inputs from your retailer as to how many active doors they think they're going to have this coming year, what doors your specific products will be in. And then you can multiply that out to create a total forecast of what you think you're going to sell. Further to that, if you did need to back up that total forecast into a by week or a by month, I've also calculated using those shortcut metrics, I've calculated a percent to total months. So now I can see the flow or the percent sell-in by month. So now you can take your total forecast and then you can multiply by these percents in to know what you expect to sell for each of the months for next fall. So I can say, for example, my Southern cushioning shoe here, about 18% of the total sales for fall came in September, 18% again in October, 25% in November. I'm just realizing that you might not be able to see this so well. Let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. 25% in November and 40% in December. So you can use this percent sell-in to then take your total forecast and then break it out by week or by month, depending on how you need to plan for that. So door counts are important. Normalizing information is important. Sales, if you can do that, sales per door, things like that. And these are all things that can be very easily done in the product using our tools. Part of my team's, my team is here to help you with that. So, reach out if you, have any questions on how to create anything I showed you today. I know it's a lot of information I put forth at you for 10 minutes or so. But anyway, this is just some examples of how you can use the tool. But now that you've seen how SPS can help you understand your historical trends within your business, we'd like for you to take a poll so that we can kind of get a little bit more understanding on what you guys are dealing with. So we're just trying to understand a little bit more about what your challenges are, and that will help us kind of fine tune the sorts of things that we offer in our product. As I mentioned, it is a flexible product. It's a DIY tool, as I like to say. You can create your own analyses exactly how you like to see them. And the beauty is that you do the work up front and then it's just done. You don't have to refresh pivot tables, upload and merge and cleanse data. All of that's done for you. So it just automatically updates the information in the reports and the dashboards that you have already set up each week. And then you can spend more time on your analysis and less time on actually creating reports. Great. All right. The results are in. So the first question, what has been your biggest challenge in analyzing your business over the past year? It looks like 57% of us said lack of data. 24% of us said technology limitations. Another 24% said organizational challenges. I know that one. And then 14% said takes too much time. So hopefully what I showed you today will address the technology limitations and the taking too much time. But I'm going to actually send it back to Courtney. She's gonna have another conversation with another panelist and to give more insight. So back to you, Courtney.
Thank you, Allison, and thank you for the demo. As Allison mentioned, as part of our retail intelligence team, she and her peers really help our customers and also our retailers to help with this type of analysis. So her team is accessible. For those of you who are not a customer, feel free to grab me after, and I'm happy to have a chat with you as well if you want to bounce around some ideas. So with the SPS service, we have two primary features. We have some of these reports and dashboards in our tools, like Allison just showed. And then we also have normalized data files that we provide to our clients in order for you to put them into your own BI tools, such as Power BI or Tableau or other. So I would like to welcome our next expert panelist, Henry, who's with Fruit of the Loom. And we'll hear a little bit about his perspective, especially working with distributors and using some of their own internal BI tools at Fruit. So Henry, nice to see you.
Hello.
So I'll start with the same question I asked Emily. Why don't we start easy and you can just tell us a little bit about your role at Fruit of the Loom.
My team is responsible for forecasting and reporting at Fruit of the Loom. So we create, verify, and check the forecast and serve as the interface between sales and marketing on the one side and production planning and distribution teams on the other side. And on top of that, we use sell-in and sell-out data to support our organization with reports and data.
So given the role that you're in, I imagine some of the disruption in the market has been quite impactful and has been affecting your business. So can you tell me a little bit about how this has impacted your business and how it's changed your planning process?
We use a statistical forecasting tool which creates a forecast based on the history, as 2020 was a quite unusual year. This leads to several issues with this approach. So we needed to think kind of out of the box and used more data, especially POS data, to create a different approach, especially since trends are changing, channels are changing, we're moving towards an online business. Also, the trends in the categories change. So this is something which is very difficult to track. And especially as this is happening very fast, it's quite impossible for an automatic system to catch up on this.
So what kinds of data are you using when you're doing your forecasting to feed this statistical analysis? What kinds of data, what kinds of metrics, and how do you get that data?
We use our own sell-in data as a primary source of information. This feeds our statistical forecast, and we use then the POS data we receive per data feed from SPS to verify our assumptions and to check on trends to verify these trend changes.
So a good mix of sell in and sell out. And as you say, I think it's really key to have that balance, because looking at one without the other is really only half the picture. So in your case, being that we are primarily working with Fruit of the Loom here in Europe on distributors, what percentage of your distributor customers do you get sell-through data from now? And how did you go about those initial conversations with these distributors to get them to share this data with Fruit of the Loom?
We receive data from roughly 75% of our business, which is quite a lot. The strongest argument we used and which worked is the mutual interest in improved planning processes on our side. So when we are better at planning our production and our stock levels, then this leads ultimately to a better availability and a better speed to the market. So this is then obviously helping our customers as we don't suffer from out of stocks.
It's true. And I know from the poll, it sounds like lack of data is one of the challenges that a lot of our attendees today are facing. And I think having those open conversations with your distributors, with your retailers about data and about what you need to effectively plan your business, as well as help your retailers and your distributors with their planning is really the key to unlocking some of those insights. So Henry, going on to our next question, can you describe how using this sell-out data through SPS Commerce Analytics has impacted your business? Because as you mentioned before, you were using sell-in, maybe a bit of sell-out, but now through the service that you have with us, how is that helping you to navigate the uncertainty in the market?
There are two perspectives here. One is the POS data itself. So we still use our sell-in generating forecast, but we use the short-term tracker on the POS side to identify changes in categories and specific styles or in customers, where we see basically live on a daily basis which product is working and which not. And then we adjust our forecast accordingly. The second perspective is we had POS data in the past already, So we received a monthly POS information from some customers, but in like, I don't know, 50 different formats in, I don't know, PDF, Excel, email, everything. So we needed a lot of time, a lot of effort to convert this data somehow to use it. Now it's just live because we get it via a data feed daily. So this saves a lot of time, which then enables us to use more of this time for reporting and for analyzing the data instead of just converting them.
That's such a good point. It can be incredibly manual, and I think sometimes it's easy to underestimate the time that it takes to put that together. How much time was it taking you before you worked with SPS to compile this data? I know you said you were getting it monthly. What kind of time would it take to actually get it to a point that you could make decisions from it?
Half a month for 2 people.
Wow.
So basically 1 person, full months.
Wow. And that was using monthly data too. And as you said now, one of the nice things I think with what we've set up with Henry is this data on a daily basis. And I would like to mention, I know for those out there, I think weekly is still the norm. Sure, we have some retailers that are happy to share data on a daily basis. In this distributor discussion that we've done with Fruit, obtaining that data daily was key. So Henry, with your data moving from that monthly cadence to that daily cadence, what kind of impact has that had on your forecast? I imagine it's given you much better visibility into trends and what's happening.
It especially allows us to track these short-term trends. So right now, everything's moving to the sporty, casual, homeware stuff. And this is happening very fast. And with monthly data, you just lose 3 weeks or 4 weeks sometimes of data visibility. Whereas on the daily level, if you track this daily, then you can really see the peaks and the upswings and downswings also on other products very, very fast. So the change is that while we verify our assumptions on the sell-in forecast, we always can refer back to our POS and check for good performing or not good performing products, and then refer back to sales to then in the end change the long-term forecast accordingly.
Yeah, that frequency and that visibility, I think, is so important to being able to keep up with the rate in the world today. So one last question for you. What is your advice to other brands on the call that are considering using sellout data to improve their planning and forecasting?
My advice is to use all information available. So sell-in is fine, but sell-in is always disconnected from sellout due to timing issues. So stock ramp up, promotional business, replenishment cycles on the customer side, all kind of floor the real flow of goods. So you need both perspectives, sell-in and sell-out, to really get a big picture. And especially short-term trends are not visible in the sell-in data because this is reacting far too slow.
Very good points. And thank you for all of your insight, Henry. I'm sure our audience will have some more questions for our panelists and probably for the SPS team as well. So next, I will invite back Will. And Will, could you take us into our Q&A? And also, didn't I hear something about prizes earlier?
You sure did. You sure did. Good work, Courtney. Thank you, Emily. And thank you, Henry. Very good presentation. Allison, awesome job, like always. But before we move on to our live Q&A, when each one of you joined today's event, we got a chance to take names and do a drawing. And I want to present to you the 2 names that we pulled for these amazing headphones that you see on your screen. And those 2 winners are, suspense, suspense, suspense. We have Marta Pravasti and Sean Mashadi. Congratulations, very nice. The 2 of you are the winners of these headsets. We have your email when you are registered, so our events team will be in contact with you shortly after the event to arrange for delivery. Again, congratulations. All right, well, we're ready to get back to business. Let's move on to our Q&A session. Don't forget to post your questions in the Q&A area. As I mentioned earlier, it's not the end of the world if you do it in the chat section, but we want to try to bring all of our questions to the Q&A section to get it answered. We'll be on the lookout for all of your questions, and we're going to bring back all of our panelists who did such an amazing job up to this point, helping us out in understanding how they utilize their data. All right, well, it looks like we have a few questions that are coming in, and I want to shoot them out to you. The first one I have is, how far out are you forecasting? In other words, what forecast are you building currently? I think that, Henry, could you help us with that one?
Yeah, sure. So we are currently building a 18-month rolling forecast on long-term perspective, and then a 6 months forecast, which is much more fine-tuned for short-term planning.
I have another question, and this one is from Judy. Judy's asking, some retailers aren't comfortable sharing pricing data. Can you explain a bit about how your analysts, or how you analyze, and the ability to do things, these things to impact when you have only units, and how you accommodate for that? Emily, would you be able to help us with that question, please?
Sure. Yeah, so this is something we frequently discuss internally. Obviously at Under Armour, we have some retailers that provide us with all of the pricing data, and then we know the kind of margin that the product is being sold at to the end consumer. But then we also have a lot of retailers from specific regions within Europe that don't like to share that data, and or there's other reasons why they don't share it. But yeah, I think the main difficulty we have when we don't get it is that we only know what units volume was sold and what the inventory looks like, but we don't actually know whether that was sold at full price or whether that was heavily marked down. And without being able to calculate that, yeah, it just means we kind of don't have full visibility. And ideally, we would like to sell enough product into our retailer where they can sell it out within the season at the retail price without having to mark down. So when we do get that data from retailers, then that helps us shape how we sell in future, because we know, we know the areas that had to be kind of marked down, driven from previous seasons. So yeah. It definitely helps when we get all data, and actually the retailers that we have that from, we can talk into that data comfortably with them, and I think it benefits both sides.
I completely agree, Emily. To elaborate on that a little bit, I think that's been something we started to see a bit of a shift in across Europe, but you're right in that many retailers still are not comfortable sharing the values and the price information. And it is so critical to really seeing and understanding the performance of a product, because if you're only looking at the quantities, as Emily said, a lot of that could be going out the door marked down. And I think as a brand, you want to be able to advise and help your retailers to maximize their sales and to sell things at full price, and protect the brand as well, and the pricing that it should be getting. So it's always something that we at SPS recommend, and I think it's something that over time, as data becomes just a more open discussion between all parties, suppliers, retailers, distributors, hopefully we'll continue to see more visibility into this.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, the questions are still rolling in. I have another question. Emily, maybe you can help us with this one. What is the lowest level of data received on a product and location, example, or door, country, and why is it important?
So yeah, we receive all of our product sellout data at EAN level, which is obviously then the size. I have to say, on kind of weekly reporting and insights, we're looking more at the product level. But actually, when you want to go, as in the article level, the sum of the sizes. But when we want to move into more kind of replenishment opportunities, actually having that EAN level data really helps, because we can see what sizes are specifically out of stock and potentially whether we have the stock to fulfill that. So it gives more opportunity, even if you aren't using it all the time. I mean, the door level one, obviously I'm working in a digital only business, so that's not so relevant, but I know for the brick and mortar business or omni-channel retailers, like that's essential for lots of the reasons why that Allison touched on, that we need to know how much to plan per store. And the country level one is also something that we've actually built a new metric with the help of SPS, which is allocated each door in region to a country. And then that's helped us create dashboards so we can track that country performance against year over year in light of the lockdown situation in that country specifically. So all of that's really helped.
Thank you for that. Another question, and Allison, maybe you can help us with this. Sean was asking, what are some of the different forecast techniques that people are using in the tools? Do they need a data scientist for this, or can they do it themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are very sophisticated forecasting software and algorithms that you can use, but our tool is really a tool to kind of have generate reports to help you make those decisions on the forecast. So they won't actually, apply any sort of sophisticated algorithms to produce a forecast, but analyzing your sales is very important to understand, how you want to shape your forecasts and how you want to adjust them. So it's very important to look at those. But, if you do want to develop very sophisticated forecasts, then yes, we do want to involve either a data scientist or one of these more sophisticated forecasting software tools out there. I'm not sure if Henry or Emily are using any forecasting tools, but generally in my experience, retailers do employ sophisticated forecasting software to help generate those forecasts, whereas suppliers, you just kind of do it in Excel and rely on internal decision-making to come up with the forecasts. And of course, the inputs from the retailer help a lot.
Thank you, Allison. Another question came up was, as more and more brands are going to D2C, do you see more retailers moving away from sharing information? Emily, I'm gonna ask you that question.
Sure. Yeah, I think we haven't. I mean, I can't think of an example of a retailer who has wanted to stop sharing that information with us. I kind of feel like if we get the data in the first place, then we've seen that continue, even if the strategy is kind of more D2C driven within their own business. And actually, yeah, if I think to pretty much all of our online partners, particularly in the UK, there's a really strong culture around sharing all of that information, the retail, the sales, the cost of goods sold, and the margin. So I haven't, based on my experience, seen a change in trend there. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, with that one, it's an interesting one. I think it can be a fair concern, and it is something that I do hear from time to time from retailers, is that as brands are expanding their D2C presence, that might cause a retailer to want to hold their sellout figures a little closer. But I think when you consider the risks versus the benefits, and also the trust that you have with your vendor, I mean, it may be also brand to brand and the people that you're working with, and understanding how they're using this data to help your business, asking those types of questions and letting them prove it, because a lot of the people that you are working with are quite good at this, and they see what's going on in the industry, and they're there to help. They want to grow, of course, their own brands, but also the business for the retailer. So I think that's important to keep in mind, and also to get it out in the open and have a discussion around it, because we want all parties involved to be comfortable when it comes to sharing data, and to share as much data as they possibly can, to make sure that the types of decisions that can be made from it are more complete.
Yeah, and further to that, I think that you're kind of taking some of the work and onus off of the retailer if they provide the level of detail that you as a supplier need to make, to make better call outs and recommendations based on what's happening, all the way down to the product and even the EAN level. So having the ability for the supplier to do that level of detailed analysis that maybe the retailer doesn't have time for will in the end benefit both parties.
I actually also thought of one more point on that. Yeah, I mean, we currently, based on the fact that the digital or the online sales, it's just not going away. Another part of what we're doing at Under Armour is also working with all of our wholesale partners who aren't who are kind of omni-channel, so they have their own e-commerce plus brick and mortar. And we actually developed a new role for somebody who can kind of support all retailers with that strategy to improve digital. And so by having all of the same data as the brick and mortar, then we can really start to see, you know, where there are differences in that retailer between their e-commerce and between the brick and mortar with the full kind of range of KPIs. You know, how is the margin different, or actually in some cases we saw improvements. So that's something that hopefully we can also convey to our retailers, that that's part of our strategy to help them with that. And I think, yeah, having less KPIs or less metrics wouldn't kind of assist that transition.
Actually, Emily, you just brought up something to my mind that I forgot I wanted to call out in the demo, was that if you're using the tool, the SPS tool, we get sales through the retailers broken out between brick and mortar locations and e-commerce sales. And the e-commerce sales generally come through to us as one store, so that if, for example, that dashboard I showed, you can filter down to the one store that correlates to the e-commerce business and understand how the sales are just in that channel. And then you can actually exclude that channel and then just look at purely brick and mortar. So there are ways to do those analyses if you have the data in the SPS tool.
Great. Seems like the answers that you guys are giving are creating even more questions, which is amazing. I love it. I love seeing it. This may go to some of our guest panelists. Who are your internal champions to get the sell-in and sell-out forecasting data? Maybe Emily or Henry, anyone?
I'm not sure if I understand fully what internal champions, what we mean by that. I don't know whether it's possible to clarify that and then maybe do the other questions from my side.
Sure. We can definitely come back to that question. Let's go with the one next on the list. When you have limited coverage of sellout data, which methods do you follow in order to extrapolate across total business? Which level of coverage do you believe that this is safe enough to make these assumptions? Henry, that would be something I believe you were talking about a little bit earlier.
That's yes, as we only have 75% coverage, we have to somehow tackle this issue. So that heavily depends on the type of business and the channel we are in. Because when you look at brick and mortar and distributor business, and you can all like treat them as a similar business model, you can always just scale it up from a 75% or 60% level. But if you talk about different channels, different business models like e-commerce, direct customers, or promotional business, then it's really hard to use these assumptions as for the other ones. So if you have only limited coverage in a group of similar working customers, you can always just use this upscale and downscale, then 75% or even 60% is also fine. And then for the other channels, you need different approaches if you don't get the POS data.
We have a similar approach in parts of the business where we don't receive full coverage of the sellout, but we obviously do have full coverage of the sell-in because we have our own sales plans. So for that missing part, then we would also want to look at, like, of those accounts that don't give us the coverage, like what did the kind of sales plan look like? And then that helps us, even though it's not telling us about performance, at least we know where the intention for where the performance was kind of expected to be. And then that helps us kind of roll up to the 100% if we need to.
Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. Great answers, and also to those out there, great questions. If we didn't get a chance to answer your question, do not fear. I will give you some contact information to reach out to us so that we can answer some of those questions that may not have been answered today. Well, I want to, we hope that everyone had a great time today and got a lot of insights from today's discussion. What I would ask that each one of you to watch out for an email from SPS with a summary of today's event and an invitation to take a short survey. And we want to know what your thoughts were. How did you feel about today? If doing that, we will enter you into a drawing and you have an opportunity to win some more headphones. It's really exciting. Finally, be on the lookout for an email launching our next conversation. The next conversation will be on equipping sales teams with data. Registration opens up next week. We hope that you are registering and get a chance to come and check it out. And lastly, as I mentioned before, some of you may have had some questions that we didn't get a chance to get answered. We want to get those answered for you. If you liked what you learned today about the brands and using sell-through data and improve your planning process in Europe, please reach out to Courtney. She'll be able to help you and get you some more information on some of the topics we had today, as well as some of the SPS services that we talked about. Thank you again for joining us. We are so grateful for you, and we hope you have an amazing day and even a better rest of your week. Thank you.